You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!
Yes. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here with you. We're doing a special Quite Frankly broadcast from Studio B tonight. From Studio B. I got all my equipment, though. It's not like we can't pick up the slack. But we'll be back in Studio A tomorrow. It was a great time last night with Vinny Brusco. Everybody was always everybody's been very, very complimentary of how awesome of a guest he was, the rapport, the friendship, all that stuff. And I already told Vinny I'd love to have him back more often. He said, "I'd love to be back, my man." So I'll toss him some dates, and hopefully he comes back sometime in the month of December. But if not, then I will make sure that you'll see a little bit more of Vinny Brusco in 2026. Why the hell would I ever deny a friend who's local from coming by and hanging out? You know, just seeing what happens, and that's what we will do more of next year for sure. I'm actually going to be doing a little bit more from this room soon, over the course of the next few weeks, and just going to be it's going to be a part of what I am going to be supporting the nightly show with, and that is irregular, but all around the same times. Late morning streams that either have to do with a single topic that it's going to be covered, a special guest interview that'll be less than 40 minutes or so, and it'll all be called the B-Sides. It'll be the B-Sides broadcast from here from Studio B. That's it, B-Sides, and that'll be soon. That will be soon. You know who's actually going to come back and talk to me for a little bit? Dave from the X22 Report. Haven't spoken to Dave on this show in God knows how long. And who's this? Oh, I guess I should have expected this. Who are you? Come on in. Oh, what is on your head? Come on in and show everybody what is this?
My elf hat.
It's your elf hat? You know what? Everybody heard. Here. Everybody heard about your time at Radio City to see the Rockettes.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, tell everybody what you like the best about the show.
What they shoot confetti out.
You like the confetti that shot out from the ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
And did you take some home?
Yeah.
She took some confetti home. And what else you want to tell people?
That I have a Santa list.
You do?
I will be right back.
A Santa list?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I will get.
Okay, very quickly. Hey, while she's grabbing her Santa list, I want you guys to call your attention to, if you are on YouTube by any chance, I finally put together some member emojis in the chat room, and the more members we get, apparently, the more emojis slots that open up. I added Fat J. Everybody wanted Fat J. I added Timothy Alberino as a cat. Oh, you know what? I told people about this letter to Santa. All right, so real quick, tell everybody what the big thing is in here.
I would like, may I please have a fox, a dog, and a deer.
A fox, a dog, and a deer. And what did you ask Mrs. Claus about? There's something for Mrs. Claus, right? Miss Claus on the back says, "Dear Mrs. Claus, how are you? If our family comes to the North Pole, will there be hot chocolate? I hope so. XOXO." That's very nice. Well, tell everybody that you'll see them soon and you love them.
I'll see you soon and good night.
Good night. You have a good night, cozy girl. Okay, close the door and have a great evening. No blood-curdling screams. Anywho, so yeah, real quick before I get into discussing who our guest is for the night, who I couldn't be happier to have my guest on tonight, even though it's going to be a strange and twisted trip into the world of not only the homelessness epidemic, but it overlaps tightly with the mental health epidemic, drug epidemic, all that stuff. His name is Kevin Dahlgren. You're going to learn a lot about him tonight if you don't already know who he is. His Substack is in the description of the episode. But like I said, I'm really excited about our new emojis on the YouTube chat because, you know, there's a couple of things have opened up to us over there I never thought would be opened up to us. And so I wanted to throw this up there. Right now, you'll see that there is the nugget. There's the chicken nugget with Aurora's face in there. I swapped out the jester, my jester head, with the now infamous pube jester. So the pube jester is in there. There's the lava lamp. I took out the UFO for now. I replaced it with Timothy Alberino, the cat Timothy. He even has a tail. This is what the Discord created for him a long time ago. Fat J is in there because people said they wanted it. And for a little bit of a seasonal treat, there is Black Wheelchair Santa. And when we're out of the season, then I'll find something else. You know, maybe probably around July, we'll have Mark Swan dancing by the poolside or something like that. But just wanted to let you know, one of many reasons why you should become a sponsor of the show or a member if you use YouTube exclusively, which that is totally up to you. Anyhow, okay, so tonight, Kevin Dahlgren. I want to show you a little something. Here is an August 25th, 2025 blog that he published on his Substack. That is truthonthestreets.substack.com. The link is in the description. Streets are the new asylums. When you step foot into any concentrated homeless area in any large city in America, you immediately realize we don't have a homeless crisis. We have a mental health crisis. Everywhere you look, you see intense sadness, extreme irritability, unpredictable behavior, violent outbursts, mood swings, and sorrow. Self-harm is common, and witnessing a psychotic person bash their head against a wall or repeatedly punish themselves is not uncommon. Despite the shocking behavior, there's very little the community can do to help them as long as they refuse. And the current law stands, they must be in danger to themselves or others for them to get placed on hold, go to court, and be committed and sent to a locked mental health facility. I was a discharge planner at a mental health locked subacute for 4 years. We're going to talk about all this stuff in just a moment. It was a 16-bed facility, and on average, we had 2 to 3 committed individuals. Their length of stay varied, but generally, it was 60 to 90 days before being released on their own recognizance. My job was to try to place them in higher or lower levels of care after they were stabilized and thorough assessment was made. Now, from there, we are going to bring in our guest to be able to talk about just what the system provides as far as placement and as far as rehabilitation. If that's even a thing, is rehab even a thing these days? I don't see anybody getting rehabbed, if you ask me. But Kevin Dahlgren, like I said, is an independent journalist from Portland, Oregon, who has spent many years, covering the very serious homelessness epidemic that we have in the United States and elsewhere, and he covers it from the angles of law enforcement, economic, mental health, and of course, even spiritual health. Kevin, I've waited a long time for this one. It's great to have you on tonight. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. Happy to be here.
Well, okay, so your work is very well known. I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people who are introduced to you for the first time tonight, and I would really just love it if you could talk about your time before you began reporting, because you worked in social services, no?
Yeah, I started my career in social services after I got my college degree. I ended up working 28 plus years in the nonprofit world. I also work for the county, the city, and the state. So I have extensive experience working in the social service system, and I saw firsthand the dysfunction. And after a long enough time, I just grew enough frustrated enough to kind of leave it all behind and then just start reporting on this very dysfunctional system that went from a cause to this billion-dollar industry,
Multi-billion dollar, I have to imagine.
multi-billion.
We see, and here's the thing that I have to imagine we're going to start seeing merge together is several different humanitarian crises coming together at once. I know that there's a major drug situation here. There is mental health, of course, homelessness. There's always been homeless. So you talk about economic impacts, disaffected people, but we also know that the problems at the border is a very big situation here. Of course, even when it comes to just the drugs getting into the country. But let's just start with the laws because every once in a while, especially from Portland, we hear. I mean, I'm in New York, so we have crazy people at the helm over here as well. But we always hear about these new drug laws and policies that are tried in places like Portland, Oregon, and their impacts and how whatever their intended purpose was, it's not panning out that way. So lawmakers, talk a little bit about that. In your estimation, which policies have backfired the most?
Well, Oregon is infamous for being the first state to try all these radical policies that never work out. The biggest one, certainly in the last few years, was when we decriminalized drugs. That just led to the largest increase of overdoses and deaths in our state history. Anyone with common sense who are boots on the ground knew this was going to be a spectacular failure. I mean, you need to think by decriminalizing drugs, you just gave this large group of people who lack rational thinking and critical thought the ability to freely use drugs everywhere. And it just created this huge inflow issue into specifically Portland, Oregon. And it just was a devastating couple years before we recrimmed it. It was just as bad as it got. I mean, I'd never seen more bodies in my life than I did over the last few years.
It's sad because that's one of the craziest and most common thing that you really report on, on all of your, whether it's Instagram or Twitter. Um, it really just does seem like bodies are strewn across the street out there in Portland on some days, and that some most of the time, from what I'm seeing, is that the average day of a Portland police officer is really just administering Narcan and overdose drugs all day long and checking people's pulses. It's really apocalyptic. What you post a lot, and you, the libertarian in the audience might say, "Well, listen, drug legal the drugs are not the problem. The enforcement is the problem of this. What would legalization, in making it illegal, what would ruining a person's life by putting them in jail constantly and all the other, how does that help too? But on the other hand, I don't know where you see a middle ground, or where what you think would be the perfect blend of tough love and also treating people like adults, even if what they're choosing for themselves is ruining their lives. I wonder what you have come away from after all these years, because one thing I know for sure is that cities like Portland or anywhere else out there providing clean crack pipes,
Yeah.
providing places for people to shoot up. Like it's one thing to say, "Hey, listen, if you get caught with this stuff, we're not going to throw the book at you. We're going to try to help you or something like that. We're not going to throw the book at you." But it seems like some states are going above and beyond to actually provide to enable
Mhm.
people in their addiction.
Enable, arguably even encourage. I have libertarian leanings, right? But here's the thing is the number one drug on the streets right now is fentanyl, okay? It used to be meth, it used to be heroin, marijuana, alcohol, whatever. Fentanyl is by far the deadliest drug in history. It is 50 times stronger than heroin, and even 2 milligrams can kill an adult male, which is just a few flecks that can go on fit onto the cheek of the Lincoln penny. So that's just put it in perspective that it's a very small amount that can kill you. And so by we have this very pro drug use culture, specifically in Portland. Harm reduction activists and stuff really support a person's right to use. It's called bodily autonomy. And while I, again, as a libertarian leanings, I would somewhat agree with bodily autonomy, except not something that's almost guaranteed to kill you, right? There's got to be this sort of structure, and it's not. And honestly, I don't see the value in giving an addict who lacks critical thinking and rational thought a pipe, a straw, or foil so they have the ability to continue to use the deadliest drug in history. That is what I fight against. That is completely insane. These people are just simply out of their mind. I'm a drug and alcohol counselor by trade. That's what I went to college for, right? I've seen it all, right? I'm a big believer in recovery. I also don't believe jailing junkies helps, Sometimes it can, like, as some people say, I wasn't arrested, I was rescued. So yes, that sometimes helps, but jailing a junkie just because they're using, generally speaking, doesn't work. It's ineffective. So you're asking me what the compromise is or whatever. I mean, I'm not a big believer in drug use because it just simply doesn't benefit you whatsoever. And it ends up hurting not only you, but everybody around you. And that is a big issue. I've snuck into a handful of safe injection sites in San Francisco and also BC,
I saw the one in Canada.
Canada. And you saw the video. It is shocking. It is way beyond even third world. It is like, this cannot even be happening. What I witnessed was so eye-opening and so crazy. Who in their right mind would think that this is somehow compassionate? Boom. I mean, I was just in shock what I saw. And I did this because I needed to raise awareness that there was no support. These are people left to their own devices. You're even showing the tame parts, but it was very eye-opening. So no, I don't generally support safe injection sites. What I do support is a recovery model to work with everybody to identify why a person's an addict and to try to help them get clean. It's important to know with addiction and even homelessness, the root cause of almost all of that is childhood trauma, something we want to talk about. So if we got to that root cause and started working with them, maybe we could kind of break that cycle and actually start to make a difference.
How
You can't just tell an addict to stop using drugs. You have to replace it with something that's of equal intensity, that's positive. It's the only way you're gonna do it. Most people can't, like, it's called white knuckling it, where you're just like, I'm never gonna use again. Willpower. Some people can do it, most people can't.
and you've been doing this independently for how many years now?
Uh I mean, 5+ years as like an official independent sort of journalist. But what I have is a strong background, knowledge from just working in the system for many years and being in all kind of like positions of, I guess, authority to make certain decisions. I kind of climbed the ladder slowly. Certainly in the last 10 years of my social service career, I became far more opinionated of like, this is insane what I'm working in. Yeah, I mean, the fact is we kind of pivoted to not a permanent solution model, but to more of a let's keep them comfortable on the streets model. And that changed everything. It happened right around when in 2013, President Obama said, I will end homelessness in 10 years. All right, look it up. He said, I will end homelessness in 10 years. And so he signed the Housing First bill, which was really a $1 trillion package. So that obviously expired last year. How are we doing? Now, I knew 100% this would never happen, but I was at least very cautiously optimistic that that was a bold thing to say. So what are we going to do to fix it? But here's the little dirty little secret is there was no plan whatsoever. There wasn't. This is the entire time I worked for these very NGOs that were benefiting from this bill, and we did not have a plan, right? And that was very, very frustrating. So it's like, that's why I say it's this cause has become this multi-billion-dollar industry, sadly.
Yeah, well, I think that's another opportunity that I'd love to give you to fill something in for not only myself but others. I've read quite a few of your articles on your Substack, which, if, again, for anybody just tuning in right now, is linked in the description of the episode. It's one thing to say, hey, we're going to set up safe injection sites, You can come to this soup kitchen over here and get yourself some clean crack pipes, whatever the hell it is. The dogs are called off with the police, whatever the policies are with the actual using. That's one thing. But I think another one that I've learned from you that most people I think would think would always be a net positive is housing. And you've written about social housing and how this is probably so much worse for a person who's trying to dig
Yeah.
themselves out of a hole.
Yeah.
Talk about the paradox of
It's
social housing, because most people
uh,
would think, okay, get person off the street, get them a clean bed, and that's going to be good for them. Talk about what we do with the housing.
well, these are not drug-free environments. So, if a person is really trying to get clean, honestly, it's like the last place they should go. I've worked for these places too, and it is a drug den. People will just like knock on your door and offer you drugs. I mean, imagine trying to get sober and but someone who's easily triggered and really craving and sometimes it is like out of sight, out of mind. You just kind of have to get away from that culture for a while
Mhm.
before you can build that strength. And they're literally thrown into the lion's den. A lot of drug dealers live in social housing. Uh, most of them actually they accept the housing, but they don't live there. They kind of illegally, sublet to other people, and they just stay on the streets. It's a very common little, hustle on the streets. So I'm not a big fan of social housing because there's a strong lack of structure. It's not really generally managed well, and I've spent many of them, and it's just shocking how bad it is. And it is almost impossible to stay clean in these environments. It's just chaos. Not to mention overdoses are a common occurrence. I've interviewed just gosh, almost about 100 people who live in social housing, and they would share with me exactly what it's like to be there. And they had that rude awakening because they wanted housing, they were excited, and they went in there and they just realized staff is very supportive of this drug culture. I'm someone who happens to be sober, which means you just kind of get thrown at the wolves and hope to stay clean, which is really hard to do. So I'm not a big fan of that. I don't think ever really worked unless managed well. I mean, my goal, I believe the goal, working with every single homeless person, uh, is to help them reach their fullest potential and help them become self-sufficient, because if they do, they don't need social housing. Because social housing is often for life, where now you're kind of stuck within their little web, and they let you live there probably usually for free or very cheap, but for the rest of your life. And trust me, it's like that's not a way to live. These are
What
not great places.
what you write here, 2.7% of Americans, about 9 million people, reside in social housing, but it's this paragraph that really got me, what you wrote about. The problem is that these are often high density designs that end up concentrating too many people into small spaces, creating an almost institutional feel. Over time leads to many problems. It can profoundly affect a person's health, safety, and psychological well-being. It's a psychological phenomenon known as individuation. So I think that's incredible right there, because I can start seeing how you don't even need to have a drug problem to start feeling this way when you talk about
Hmm.
these densely packed cities or any other kind of living quarters there, where concentrated housing heightens stress, leading to anxiety, frustration, aggression, and then tends to lead to elevated crime rates, drug abuse, and victimization. Can you, before we get into the law and the police, and at any time you want to break away to something you think is more important, please do so, Kevin. But I think one of the first things that got me to follow you was you were one of the first people that I saw putting the time into showing how the social environments around the homeless themselves, that I mean, stressing how homeless encampments are not civil in the least bit, that they're rife with murder, with sexual assault. Is this the case in public housing as well?
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, very much drugs. That's very common. Intimidation. It's very difficult to not be a part of that world because even though you've left the streets, It's the same people, but now in housing with poorly managed, staff members. So, you're still, it's kind of just like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You finally left a street and now you're in this crazy environment where you're in many ways more overwhelmed because now you no longer feel this sense of freedom that you felt on the streets. Now you're stuck in this room surrounded by chaos with noises and screams and drug activity and people overdosing in the bathrooms and strangers being invited in. And these are just not great environments. I'm not saying it can't work. It has to be managed well. And 9 times out of 10, that is why these fail, is because they're not managed by the right people.
You wrote, just from an economic standpoint, something even more incredible back in November. I'm going to put it up on screen here too. It's just the opening paragraph.
Hmm.
The homeless population in Portland, Oregon has surged by 61% over the past 2 years, with more than 4,000 additional people now living on our streets. With Portland Metro having a yearly budget of $724 million, we have to ask, do we keep increasing the budget to meet the demand, or is the growing demand itself driving those increases? One thing, either way, is one way or clear. If money alone were the solution, we would have solved the crisis a long
Yeah,
time ago. My question for you is, I mean, those are pretty staggering sums of money and
they are.
everything. But
Well, and if you could scroll, I did a graph. I made this graph. I think it's on that art. It must be on that article. It's the only where place I would. Oh, right there. So I did a graph over the last 10 years, and I showed our annual budget increase with our annual homeless increase. And as you see, it's equal. As budgets increase, so does homelessness. Where in theory, if money were the solution, we would have seen a drop in homelessness, but they both go up almost identical, which shows money. If money were the solution, we would have solved it right now, and money is not the solution. And so this is just over a 10-year period. And this is not even taking into account the new 61% increase. So I have no doubt probably next fiscal year we're going to ask for an additional maybe 200 million.
so then that's my next obvious question, aside from how staggering all around the numbers are. But the first thing that pops to my mind is, where do those 4,000 people come from? Are they native from Portland? Because I'm not all, so okay. So then, how many of the 4,000 you think are from out of town? I've seen the
Y-
interviews.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any official like study, but like I've interviewed over 7,000 people in the last 4 plus years. I would say it's right around 50% are out of state transplants, which any you read this anywhere, nobody agrees, but like, and I knew right away if I were just to say this, they'd be like, Kevin doesn't know what he's talking about. So I let the homeless speak for me. I basically said, so where are you from and why are you here? And about half the time, they will say, well, I heard Portland is a sanctuary city. I heard you decriminalize drugs. I heard it's easy to be homeless here. I heard you have more services. It's always like the same thing. And so it's around there. I mean, I'm sure it varies like city to city, but in Portland, it's a good half of the population come from out of state. And I've always said this, to solve a problem, you have to understand the problem. And so even though not everybody liked the fact that I was uncovering this, we need to understand why we are thought of it as a sanctuary type city that attracts the homeless. Because the end of the day, even if we triple the budget, as long as we have this kind of inflow, we're never actually going to solve this crisis because there's just too many people needing the same services. So we have to sometimes find a way of preventing people from coming here just to be homeless. That is a big issue.
I've seen some of those interviews. I have to imagine some of them might have been yours, because it was really just the camera on the in the individuals who are talking about. I mean, it was almost like they were talking about Portland as a tourist destination. Like like word got out that this was a wonderful place to come, that you can pitch a tent wherever the hell you want, that the police are not going to bother you, and that you're given whatever you need.
Yeah.
Your every need is facilitated. And of course, it's terrible. So it's almost created a strange kind of drug tourism. And that's one thing that even just from a distant observer like myself, I've been able to piece that together. You know, let me just ask you about the police then for a second, because if you're a cop, you know that this kind of stuff is going on there too. You know that these people are from out of town. You know that they're coming there to live this kind of a life, and your bosses, the people who pay your checks, the people who actually write the laws, the policies that you enforce, they're essentially creating a hellhole instead of protecting people who want to live clean, decent lives, and
Mhm.
also to help people who need help desperately. So, what are the police officers you speak to saying about this situation? I can't believe that they're very happy with their job right now.
Well, their biggest frustration is this: they want to enforce the laws. It's very easy to watch a law being broken on the streets of Portland. It's like it's guaranteed you're going to see it, right? Their frustration is that if they arrest the person and book them, there's a very good chance they're going to get released almost immediately, and a lot of times those charges are then dropped. And so then the police officer is like, "Well, I just basically wasted 1 or 2 hours of my time because I'm trying to make a difference." But that's the problem with my, city, is we tend to really be very lenient when it comes to certain things, right? This is why I'm a big believer of, if you arrest someone on a drug charge, give them the opportunity to go to treatment. Like, again, I don't think jailing a junkie has ever really done anybody good, but why not then say, hey, we have some leverage. You need treatment because this isn't working for anybody. So cops are definitely frustrated. This was like 2 years ago, but I believe about 50% of all arrests were homeless related, with the police, and 3 years ago, 41% of all fire department calls was homeless related in Portland. So it's like half. It's like a lot. So they have a heck of a lot of contact, way more than any other social service provider. These first responders have the most contact with this population. So of course they're very, very frustrated.
Um, Last year during those endless fires in Los Angeles, there was a lot of suppression in the media about how homeless people, whether they were American citizens or not from this country, but really just the homeless people, were contributing, exacerbating the situation by committing arson. I mean, the only way that the stories were getting out was from people with their cell phones that were, yeah, hey, listen,
Mhm.
we're citizen arrest on this guy here, this guy there. They're almost always homeless and crazed in some way. So are there home do you from all the police that I'm sure you talk to, are there any homeless related crime metrics that are being kept honestly in Portland?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a big, I don't trust in reports and things like that, because I just never know how the question was asked. Did they ask the right people? Did they keep out certain answers? I mean, I just don't trust it. It's kind of like we have the point in time count every 2 years where they say this is what our homeless population is. This is where they come from, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, it's hard to believe it, because I see the reality of the streets and those numbers never match, right? Like, last year, Deschutes County in Central Oregon said only 2.7% of our homeless population are actively using drugs. 2.7. If that were the case, that would be like a world record. Like, that would be unheard of, because throughout the United States, right, it is absolutely minimum 80% in every community, right? It's unheard of for them to even say 2.7% is like, man, you're just asking for it. And it says everything about them, because they didn't want the homeless to be looked upon as addicts. They want to be looked upon as someone who is homeless because of affordable housing. And so I just like, that's an example, is you can't trust these studies and metrics. You just can't. It's very frustrating, because this is why so many people have so little faith in what they actually see these days. And it's kind of why I believe in doing this boots on the ground work, and try to really just let people make their own decisions based on what I'm showing you, and just try to do my best to really not edit anything and just say like, "This is it. This is what's going on. It's up to you to decide what you think of it," you know?
Yeah. And it's the fentanyl that is freezing people like statues for hours. That's really what it is. Because this is fairly. I've been going to New York City. I live in Westchester County. I've been traveling into New York City my entire life. I was very well acquainted with the plight of homeless people from a young age. You see them, you understand what's going on. You say a little prayer for them, whatever it is. You've seen people in some compromising positions, and some of them are a little bit more out of it than others, but frozen like statues, like pillars of salt for hours. This is something that is I'm still getting used to. Folded over like a lawn
Yeah.
chair in play. That's all fentanyl, or is it something else?
It's we call it the fentanyl fold, right? It affects their central nervous system, and it's just, what I say is that regardless of whether you celebrate this person's right to use, this is not compassion to even allow a person to do this. I mean, it you get really used to it because it's everywhere, but it doesn't ever make it okay. I mean, I find a person overdosing about every single day and try to help them. And luckily, about 90% of the time they live, right? But it's like, it's just so severe out there. People don't even realize. So, yeah, what you're describing is highly likely fentanyl. It is a downer. And then because, meth is the opposite, it's a stimulant, which means they're going to be acting more, you know, all over the place and, a little more paranoid. Um, Almost they act like they have superhuman strength. To be honest, I'm more terrified of a person on meth than I am a person on fentanyl. Because a person on fentanyl, you're going to walk by them and they're not even going to notice you. But a person on meth, they're going to see you from 2 blocks away and wonder who you are. And they're going to think in their mind, is this person trying to hurt me? Because of the paranoia. So it's like, it's a little nerve wracking to be around people who use meth because their behavior is very unpredictable.
Yeah, and that brings up the question about the spiritual side of this, because I and again, once I started following you, I realized that there were so many facets to this nightmare on the streets that people deal with. And one side of it is just the drugs. Drugs can make people act in inhuman ways that give them the strength to rip a door off the hinges sometimes, or whatever, but or of course just freeze you into place. But I've seen you talk in the past about how there are some occurrences that have left you pondering the paranormal in some ways, almost, or whether or not people are spiritually possessed, if there's something there other than just substances. What can you share about this topic with the audience?
Well, it's not even what I've even suggested. It's what the homeless have been telling me the last year is they more than ever before literally describe the streets as demonic, right? They are the ones that say it's demonic. They say uh they've never felt less comfortable than they do now. They believe that some portal is open and that there's something taking over the city. And honestly, you spend enough time out there and you hear the screams and you hear the way people are acting, you just kind of wonder. I'm a believer in God, so I don't know everything, but I do know that the streets feel darker than ever before, and it just makes you wonder if there's something more wrath of God like going on that I don't understand because I've never seen people act and treat others the way I do now. I've never seen more death and dying. It's just so shocking, especially for what once was such a beautiful city. So again, I don't claim to know everything, so I'm not really sure, but at least the homeless are saying something isn't right on the streets and we do not feel comfortable.
And when you say that, are you talking about old? Like, I guess there's people out there who have been in the streets for many many years, and that's just where they are. Um, are they're talking a little bit more sober minded about how things were and how they are now? Like, are
Yeah,
there?
they're not high. They're this is like after they're high. They're like, "Hey Kevin, last night something weird happened." They're describing the streets differently than I've ever heard before that I don't really understand. So it's hard to know what's going on, but I'm hearing this more and more, right? And I'm smart enough to know I don't know everything, so I can't really even understand what's going on, but I spent a lot of nights on the streets, and you just sometimes know when you get that really dark feeling, like, either from another person or an area, and you just don't feel right, and your instinct is to walk away,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of the feeling you get on certain areas of the streets where it's just this darkness, and it's unsettling. And I felt this way in Skid Row, Los Angeles when I was there, 3 months ago doing a documentary. It seems to be most prevalent on, in these concentrated areas where there's just a lot of horrific activity. There's the sexual assaults and the murders and the abuse and the theft and the physical assaults and the drug use, the people suffering and pain. Limbs are falling off left and right because of xylazine. So because that's the side effect of adding xylazine to fentanyl, is I'm finding more and more people with literally exposed bone. Like I can see their bone. That's insane. And I mean, I've known so many people even last year that have now lost their legs. Their feet are falling off, their legs, their arms. I mean, this is serious, serious stuff. This is like it feels like revelations, right? I mean, it's just I've done this work for 30 years, and certainly we have not made a turn to things feeling better yet. Is all I would say.
I mean, you're
Um,
describing a hidden world, and of course it's a hellish world there too, because there is no, we think about the best times in our lives or the most ideal societies. It's one that feels stable and safe, where your social connections are healthy, and
mhm,
but what you're describing is a constant state of fight or flight, but then there's this chemical element to it, and this split personality kind of element to it. And I'm sure
yeah,
that there are people who have their stuff together more than others, which when you talk about a murder in like my neck of the woods out here in the Westchester area, if something like that ever happened, it's going to be on the news. But when you think about the world that you're in, that you're trying to bring attention to and trying to bring some help to, I have to imagine that this is a murder rate that would be unthinkable for some people, and is never even covered, because it's literally like
no.
happening in the upside down.
Well, not only covered, but not even reported.
Yeah.
So, sometimes like I hear certain politicians that I don't always agree with saying, we have a drop in crime. I says, no, you have a drop in people reporting crime. Crime is there, but there's a drop in the reporting of crime because people realize nothing's going to get done. So they just stopped caring. And, there's a strict code on the streets, I'm sure you may have heard of, to never call the police for any reason. It's a very strict code, and if you get caught, there's a good chance there's gonna be a violent retaliation. Now, the general rule is if you're well liked on the streets, the homeless will take care of it for you. So, such as if you were beat up, someone stole from you, or sexually assaulted, your homeless friends will find out who it is and do something called street justice. And that usually means, well, it sometimes means they're gonna get killed. It just depends. Um, so a few months ago, 11 or 12 bodies was found in Willamette River, just floating by in the near the most concentrated area of our homeless population in Portland. It was 11 or 12 bodies. I filmed a couple of them just floating down the river. That's insane. And, these are people that were just thrown into the river. And of course, because their bodies were mostly decomposed, who knows how they ended up there? Did they jump? Were they killed? Did they fall? Who knows?
I I know. And you're saying it's happening in batches, like these 12 this was a,
Happened the same month.
wow. I mean,
And
that's a level of organization right there. You'd have to imagine that that's a group of people working together. That's a very busy individual if it's
well,
only one person.
yeah, I spoke to some homeless who are a little aware of what was going on, and they kind of roundabout way said, we know some of the people in the river and they deserved it. That's all I know. Doesn't mean, it's hard to know what's hearsay, what's a lie, what's not. but I generally trust these people, and we have a good working relationship. And I do know that street justice is a real thing. So at the very least, I do know retaliation is extremely common if you cross a line. Did they get thrown in the river? I don't know. But this is just what I've heard through chatters and stuff of like, and they know who I am, so they don't want to be interviewed about it, but they will kind of just talk with me as we're like sharing a Coca-Cola or something. Hey, buy because I'll sometimes mention, tell me about these bodies you know so it's hard to know what's really going on, but one thing that you can't ignore is the fact is bodies are being found everywhere on the streets. I come across them fairly regularly. Usually they're at this point like almost uh that's second stage of when you've died, you've kind of frozen up,
Rigor mortis.
rigor mortis. That is. So I see that a lot, sadly. And the reason why I see it a lot is because most people ignore people on the streets and assume they're sleeping or leave them alone. I don't believe in leaving people alone. I believe in welfare checks every single day of every single person because you don't know what's going on, right? And I say this to, the activists out there, shame on you for saying leave them alone. These people are in a legit crisis and they might be dying because when a person's overdosing, it's not like they're oftentimes like convulsing and looks like they're overdosing. They could look like they're just sound asleep because they're also on xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer, so they're completely knocked out. That's why you have to check on these people, especially if you see them face down on the sidewalk or, you know, uh, sitting in a puddle of their own making. Something's going on.
This is I know average people are like, well, if there's a filthy obvious drug user that is having a health episode, the last thing you want to do, I mean, perhaps your heart says help this fellow human, but your brain says you do not have the barriers on to touch this person, and stay away and call a professional and walk away from the situation. You save yourself first. And then of course it brings us back to what the hell, what mindset is addressing this, and why would our local, state, even federal governments, depending on who's in charge at any given time, would commit to these obvious? Why go easy when you know that, like, whose rights are being impeded if you're going to be hard
Yeah.
nosed with what is allowed to happen in plain view on a city street where families are, used to be able to walk safely at night and whatever. I mean, it's just one of those things where there's this better, the pendulum better swing back hard, and it has to, at least, is just to be able to reset us and say, okay, now what are we going to do? We got to clean up first. And here's the last question I throw at you. This is from October. There was an executive order from the White House, and it actually addressed what you were talking about with the social housing or the housing first model, or something like that. What exactly did this executive order address, and what do you think about it? Is it a good first step?
It's an excellent first step. It's one of the boldest things any sitting president has ever done. I believe it's going to end up saving thousands of lives. Basically, what this order does is it's going to reallocate the funds that's been used for housing first and turn it into kind of a recovery model, which, considering that 90% of everybody on the streets are actively using, this will save lives. So I was very appreciative when I heard about that because it's a definitely a step in the right direction. As always, this is a presidential order. What you hope for is the boots on the ground people follow through and do what they got to do with this order. And, that's always a risk coming from, like, say, a very progressive city who may not appreciate the order. But I just tell people, I don't care what your personal feelings are on the president. This order will save thousands of lives because it is pivoting to a recovery model. It'll help people recover. More money for detox and residential programs and recovery programs. This is why I'm personally a big believer in it. Am I against all social housing? Absolutely not. Some smaller ones are well run. I don't think you can eliminate all social housing. I think there has to always be some kind of safety net for some people, but not as much as we have or like say other countries have.
Well, Kevin, I thank you so much for making your debut here tonight. I've been waiting on at least a couple of years to talk to you about your work and what you document in very, sometimes gruesome ways. And your blog is very insightful, and everybody should check that out. It's on Substack. It's in the description of the episode. Do you have anything coming out? Do you have any an appearance you're going to make? Anything you want to plug on the way out tonight?
Well, I mean, I just published my latest article yesterday on Substack. It's called "Portland is Burning," and I talk about the sort of fire culture on the streets, how fire is used as a weapon, and it's very easy to get away with because we're kind of in a consequence-free environment. So I talk about that. So that's well worth looking out. I wanted to say with my Substack is you don't have to be a paid subscriber. Just by adding your email, you can read my articles, which even that helps me sort of gain a wider audience. So that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for the time. It was great meeting you, and hopefully we're able to link up again sometime in the future. And there are positive things to talk about. And
I would love to do a part two, brother.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and have a great night.
And great job to you too. And take care.
Take care. Well, everybody, I mean, listen, I've been dipping my toe into that topic for a long time now. Taking calls from you guys and reading those stories as they come out of cities like Portland. That's one guy covering the goings on inside of a city that it has a lot of problems that are mirrored around the country, as we even saw in his article before. There's New York that is doing, especially the social housing stuff. I think Massachusetts was in there as well. But this is serious. And we all ask the same question: where are the mental institutions? It's definitely part of the issue. It's definitely part of the conversation. But I think it's a little bit too, I don't know, it's become a little bit of a conversational crutch that all over the last 40 years, all the mental institutions started getting boarded up and whatever. We definitely need to get people off the streets. That's number one. Now, I don't think that you're going to cure somebody of an addiction by throwing the book at them, but they can't be on the street. That's what I feel. Can't be on the street. It can't happen. And I really doubt. I'm very skeptical about the people who stand by this kind of permissive bullshit. I really do. Like, what's your angle? What's your angle? It's not an evolved position. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody. It actually creates drug tourism. It's so stupid. But I don't have a magic wand, and I don't know what to suggest. I just know what is really not good. So you guys can call in right now. We have about 20 minutes or so until Tony Arterburn is going to be calling into the show. So you can give me a buzz, 914-200-0269. Just tell me what you think about tonight. In the meantime, I will let you know something else. Tomorrow's the Thursday night show, and I'm going to be giving away 2 more Florida Goldbacks. 2 more Florida Goldback. Oh, they're upside down. 2 more Florida Goldbacks, the half Goldbacks. That means putting them together, and you have 1/1000th of an ounce of gold, which means you go out there and you can buy some groceries with this. Instead of putting down an ounce and losing half of a used car. So Goldbacks for your stacking, put in your little stacking wallet. And I'm also going to be putting in one of the Quite Frankly 2025 satin finish Christmas ornaments, which the Christmas ornament bundle, we only have a couple dozen left because we only made 100. The link is in the description below. It's a way to raise a little money for the show going into 2026. And it comes not only with this shatterproof, that's what they say. We'll see how many I'm going to have to resend ornaments out to people, but Christmas grams, the Christmas card from my family, a little bit of Aurora art, a video greeting, whatever it is. So this is for tomorrow. You send in a super chat, quite frankly, superchat.com, the YouTube, the Rumble, and the Gold Pills. And from tonight and tomorrow, I'm going to collect all those, and we'll pull a name, and you get more of that. I'll probably add more stuff into that too. Creatine packs, whatever the hell it is. All right, let's take a call. 612, you're on the air. Go ahead. What'd you think about tonight?
It was really great, Frank. Oh wait, I put you on speakerphone. Let me know that. So I live in Minneapolis. This is Cat 1980.
Hey,
And
Kat.
so when I drive to and from work every day, it's an extraordinarily demoralizing experience. And it's like either way you go, you're confronted with something you shouldn't have to decide about, because it's like if you try to help the homeless people, you just enable them. It's like toxic compassion. I used to be part of a ministry that did a lot of street, like feeding the homeless and giving them clothes and going to the encampments and making sure they have propane so they're warm in their tent and blah blah blah. But it didn't take very long to realize that they're just taking what you're giving them and going over there and ODing with a warm meal still in the container.
Yeah.
And the other option you have, besides trying to help, is to try not to see it. But it's a crazy making activity to drive around these streets and see people fighting and overdosing, and they got the bends and they're just tripping, and you have to just be like, I can't actually process that, but your soul knows, your heart knows. And my personal opinion is like we should institutionalize people. It's not in terms of prison for drug addiction, but because I don't know that that's a great option. But like, look, if you overdose 2 or 3 times and someone has to administer Narcan to save your ass, you get institutionalized into rehab. You are now in permanent rehab. Because sobriety isn't just about not doing drugs. Sobriety is about learning how to live, learning how to take accountability for your choices, learning how to heal, learning how to do the hard work, knowing what it is to go to work and to pay your bills. And for every person out here in Minneapolis who is underwriting these things with our taxes, it's a whole different level of demoralizing. Because every time you go to work, the money that they're taking from your check is feeding the beast that's keeping these people dying. And it's not compassionate to enable people's self-destruction. It's not. And as a Christian, I don't think that it's right for people to enable other people to die. So you can feel better that you're helping them. You're not helping them. You're feeding them. They're dying ODing with a full belly. That's what's happening in these streets. And a lot of people around here, they don't even leave their houses after 8 o'clock, even in the summer when it's sunny till 10, because the crazies come out. It's either the crazy Somalians or the crazy drug addicts, and we have this drug tourism problem here too. And the cops feel the same way. You arrest them and you send them, and then you got stupid ass judges letting them out. So what do you do? And anyway, I'm just venting, but that guy was spot on. I thank God that he's talking about this stuff and pointing out the hypocrisy in the system, because it is not compassion to enable people to self-destruct.
Well,
and that's my soapbox.
I think, and no, thank you for it, Kat. I'm glad I got a call like yours. We have more coming in right now. I'm sure that everybody sees this to one degree or another, because especially when it comes to the drug element of it, it's not even just the homelessness that this is really rearing its head. It's not. It's all over the place. It's just that it's compounded when you talk about what's going on with the street culture there too. And like most things in this country that is done illegally, but billed under the guise of compassion and doing the right thing and improving the lives and the living conditions of the average person or the person who needs the help the most. It is all put together and it is all signed off and it's all administered in the most uncompassionate way you can think about. It's so lacking in compassion, so lacking in common sense and compassion. Sometimes you can be stern. That sternness can can be compassionate. Compassion is not letting somebody have exactly what they want because it would make them feel better. No, I mean, sometimes you got to do what the right, but it's very hard for that to come through in a system that is built upon this idea of, well, we can vote this responsibility to humanity away to the bureaucrats, either in my state capital or in our nation's capital. And I'm sure some very, very competent people are going to be able to put those billions of dollars exactly where they need to be. And I'm sure there's going to be no corruption. I'm sure that they're going to be very, because the other thing that happens here, everybody, is that a budget is created, and then a budget needs to be rationalized every year. You need to spend that money, or else you don't get as much the next year after that. You need to constantly look like you're a busy little bee. And hey, look, what do we go? Because then at that point, what are you going to do? You're going to cut the homeless budget for one thing or another. And then it just becomes a real black eye politically for anybody who takes that away when it should have never been given. Because the real question we have to ask ourselves is, what help can be generated and implemented on the ground floor where they are? Because as you can see, the way that we're doing it right now and have been doing it is actually making places like Portland a magnet for drug-using homeless people from all over the country, and probably not even just this country. I got to imagine there's been at least a couple of drug users from Mexico who have heard about places like Portland, and it's essentially like utopia for them. Let's go to Portland. Let's go to Portland. If they would do this for American citizens, imagine what they would do for us, because that's another thing that we're completely retarded about, too. Let's take another call. 504, you're on the air. Who's this?
Hey, Frank, this is Mike. Just a short note. I was homeless in New Orleans for a year. This is about 10 years ago. And the only way I survived was to keep to myself, don't do any drugs. Yeah, did I have a drink now and again? Yeah, but you really, really have to be careful about the people that you surround yourself with. And it took me a year to get housing, and I've been housed ever since. So, there is hope, and just don't do drugs, bro.
Well, Mike, let me ask you a question. In the time, how long ago was this for you when you were homeless?
About 10 years ago.
Okay. So, I mean, we were already starting to see 10 years ago. We were already starting to hear a lot about this fentanyl stuff. It was starting to become a lot.
Right. It was before the fentanyl shit started happening.
So before that, I'm just trying to get a gauge of the time. In the time that you were homeless and you were out in the streets and you were just making your way, what was that environment like? Because Kevin, of course, if you were watching, described homeless people today, when they sober up from a night of hell, talking about how there's something running the streets right now that almost feels like it's spiritually malicious. I wonder how easy was it for you to navigate that subculture in the streets back then?
Well, I will tell you that fentanyl was just coming into the fore, but what I did, you could stay in a shelter for like 30 days. And then they booted you out, so you had to go to another shelter. And sometimes I'd be on the street for 30 days, but I knew where to go. What I did was just stay by myself, go to the library, and just study, and just try to keep to myself, because there are so many outside influences out there that will kill you, and they will demoralize you. And if you fall into that trap, I'm telling you, it's not hard to fall into that trap, and I never did, thank God.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, and I'm happy you got through those times so you could be here to call in tonight, Mike. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there you go. Hey, I got an email that came in. I will. This is from S, and we'll just keep names out of it. Hi, Frank. I do not want to. Let me see here. Some might call me a lurker, but what I am is a person who tries to guard her heart from endless trolls that populate the space of social media, especially on this subject. I have a son who has been homeless for 10 plus years now, lives on the streets of San Francisco, and has never been imprisoned where he might have gotten sober. My heart is broken, and over the years, even though he occasionally sends me a text or a phone call, I've had to accept that one day I will get the call. But it's not about me or all the other grieving families whose children have been sacrificed to so-called progressive policies. It's about showing that these homeless people, children, have been demonized, scapegoated, and abandoned by our culture. My son's name is Danny. I love him. He's a big piece of my heart, and he has a great big heart. I just want to say to you, Frank, thank you for making this a topic on your show tonight. And I'll be here probably lurking because the subject will have me in hopeful tears. Well, that's something else right there. And you know, that's another thing that I picked up with Kevin's work over the years is that, you know, it's easy to demonize and scapegoat. If somebody is hurting people, there are just people out there who are just wounded animals. They're not hurting anybody, but they can't help themselves. And of course, it's tough because if anybody's really going to be helped, they need to desperately want the help. I guess that's a first step, right? I mean, there's other instances where you have, I don't know, people with dozens of violent crimes and other things that are on their record that are just amazingly breathing free air. You know, I think it like most things, if you really took to people, if you really made an effort to deal with people where they present themselves to being dangerous, then I think that it would be a lot easier for people to be compassionate, at least in the news, about one thing or another. Because it's, what do you think about today? You think there's just, it's like an army of zombies out there. That's what you think about. It's nuts. So everybody wants to shirk responsibility, and especially when it comes to, you know, the shirking of responsibility on the top levels of government or state government or anything like that. You got all this money that's going around. You want to keep the money flowing, but at the same time, you know that these policies aren't going to help anybody. So on top of all of the grift and all of the nonsense, you also have to employ the media to suppress any kind of truth about the matter getting out. You have to get your district attorneys and your judges to go easy on people. For what reason? I have no clue. You know, that's something that you can just very quietly do. You know, somebody commits a crime, you finally have a reason to lock them away for years, not just 60 to 90 days. I don't get that. So there's definitely a chaos factor here. We're dealing with absolutely batshit insane people. So, I mean, you can't completely separate that. All right, let me see here. Let me see. Let's take a call from Diane. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, Diane. So what's on your mind?
Well, I'm called in. I've been a fan of the show forever, but I haven't called in lately because I'm just frankly sick of everything that's going on. I'm like at the point of, I'm just watching at this point.
Yeah, I
That's
get
it.
you.
I'm praying and watching. But this whole drug thing, I have a daughter and son-in-law. They recently got off the streets. They've been clean and sober for 2 years, but they were on the streets for 5 years here in Phoenix, Arizona. 5 years in the 120-degree temperatures. I want to say that it's a very difficult situation because there's so many different types of reasons for the homelessness. You've got the mental illness, which needs to be addressed. You've got the people who are drug addicts, which that was my daughter. And then you have the people that are just from way of life, found themselves homeless. And you also have people that actually like being homeless. With my daughter, I found I spent many, many times, I'm telling you, we went to churches, we went to community places, every places. They've been to rehab. The problem isn't the fact that they don't want to get off drugs or get into a place. There's no after programs for these people. So you put them in jail, you put them in rehab, you put them somewhere where they try to get better, but there's nothing afterwards. It falls on the families, obviously, which sometimes we can't do, you know? I mean, we're barely living paycheck to paycheck as it is.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest, in my eyes, the biggest problem is there is no after care for any of these people who do want to have help, who do want to get off the streets. Because, and I can see now, I used to get so angry because, you know, the illegals are getting all these, you know, taking up all the hotels in Arizona, and the homeless people are sitting out in the street. And you're like, what is going on?
I know.
They are the ones that should be housed.
I know. There's
after they get clean.
There's former 5-star hotels, you know, all over the country that have been refitted to be what was supposed to be temporary, and still they haven't been emptied. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
And here in Arizona too, you can go by several hotels that have been turned into places where they keep them, where they stay and they live. They're no longer hotels. You know, they're actually even fences around them because they're not a hotel anymore. Now they're just a place where they're living. And, but, you know, yes, they do have to want it. They do have to hit that point. And I understand the person who was talking earlier about helping them, giving them a handout. I completely understand that, because you do feel like you're contributing to the problem. But I guess I look at it differently, as if that's going to get them through one more day where they may have hope for one more day, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and let me tell you, it was freaking heartbreaking. It took every ounce of my being to get through 5 years of watching my daughter go through this, watching her push a cart, watching her, you know, at 35 years old, her and her husband, you know, high on drugs. And even when they didn't want to be on drugs, there was nowhere to go. We went, like I said, we went to churches. You know how many churches we went to? No one would help.
And
they wanted them to become a member.
Now that used to be the first and best line of defense too. That used to be it.
And then we'd go to like Catholic Charities or to Salvation Armies, and they always have a criteria you have to meet in order to go in there.
Yeah, you have to be a newly arrived from Honduras. That's the criteria.
Yeah, exactly. So these people, and then of course, I'll tell you one thing my daughter did say, and it is something that a lot of the older people that are homeless is that they've been homeless for so long, and this is what I was afraid of. With my daughter, I knew past 3 years, if she didn't try to get off this street soon, I was going to lose her forever. But you get to the point where, okay, there's no stress. Yes, there's stress, but a different kind of stress.
Yeah.
A stress of where you're going to eat or where you're going to sleep. But the stress of paying bills, paying your insurance, finding a job, finding housing in this crazy market. You know, they literally, there's people on there that are on Social Security but won't go get a housing because it's going to be so stressful because all their money will be taken away.
Diane, you're knocking on the door of several gigantic recurring topics on the show about again about the whole system and how it's set up, and you know, God bless you and your family. I'm so happy to hear about the turnaround. But But how many times have we talked about that? That it's another reason why there's no compassion in this monstrous machine that's been set up, where you kind of get caught in the jaws of it all, and then it becomes increasingly challenging to actually pull yourself away from it, because as you are becoming more independent, so your legs are actually getting cut out from underneath you, and there's no real way to wean off of it. It becomes a methadone drip unto itself. Yeah, it's just nutty. It really is. All right, so there you go. Well, we're going to be bringing on another guest in just a moment. You guys all know him. That is Tony Arterburn, Wise Wolf Gold and Silver, but most importantly, of Quite Frankly Gold. And a lot of you guys and gals are actually have done your first bit of stacking because of Tony and what he's set up for this audience at Quite Frankly Gold. And we've given away so much of his silver. We're going to be doing more of that again. I wanted to ask him about some economic news and things that he's seeing and all of that. So that'll be up in just a second. Before we move on, I also want to thank my sponsors, my wonderful friends at Molly at Keto Brainz, which I am having my second cup of the day, and it has been a welcome boost here at the end. I just want to let you know that we have a Christmas raffle now that she's doing. I don't know how she does this. I really don't know. She's done it again. I don't know how it's even possible. But for the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be like on the 23rd, the night before, the night when we leave, the 23rd, the Christmas Eve when Jay's in. If you make a purchase of $39 or more on Keto Brainz, again, you're getting an additional bag of the Nootropic creamer, which just, I look forward to it every morning. I've loved it for so long. I'm glad that so many people in the audience do too. A bag of creatine, a body vibration plate again. Those things are like $150 each. A bottle of the BPC 157, which we got to talk about that, and a mix of local prizes from the great state of Montana. It's hundreds of dollars again, like over $500 worth of stuff. You just use promo code Santa over the course of the next couple of weeks, and you are in the running. Listen, she's wonderful. She bends over backwards for people in this audience, and I know you guys are loving it. So I'm happy, and everybody's happy. That's all that matters at this point. It's the little things. Well, anyway, I think Tony just showed up, and this is a great way to bring him on. Tony Arterburn, he is a host. He's I love talking to him about world financial news and what the hell's going on, especially in his wheelhouse, which is precious metals. Boy, oh boy, that has been what a fun end of the summer into the fall it has been, Tony. Am I right or am I right?
Well, fun is a interesting word for it. I don't know. I've had a heck of a time, Frank. Keeping up with this. We're in new uncharted waters. Basically, a lot of the giant wholesalers and bullion banks aren't paying the way that they used to. There is something that, and I've used this before, I think, on your show, but something is breaking in the system, and the entire fiat system, the commodity system, especially when it comes to gold and silver, which are monetary metals. I think that's where you're seeing the cracks start to show in this great reset that we're in. And I've learned a lot over the past few weeks. You have a certain way of doing business, and I've done that for many, many years. And then you have a different way. You have to adjust fire. And so you would think that rising prices are great for dealers, but I'm afraid that some of the bigger trading houses are be in some trouble if we continue down this path, because there's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that most people don't see. And I'm here for it. I mean, we're doing okay, but I've definitely had to be a lot more nimble, and I'm thankful that I set up my business the way that I did.
Well, I have some questions to ask you of my own, but before I get into that, I'll just leave it to you. You know, you're talking about asking the question, is the fiat system finally cracking? And that's one of those reasons why, one of those questions why I just really defer to friends like you to come on and tell us what you're seeing out there. Because if I analyze what's going on in financial markets, or when I'm talking about the U.S. debt clock or something like that, I'm only looking at it from what an average person analyzes with their kitchen economics. You know, when you sit down at the kitchen table and you look at what's coming in and what's going out and all of your credit card debt, you can, you know, get an idea real quick if you're in good shape, bad shape, or like terminal shape. And from that standpoint, I I look at the United States and its financial situation. I say, oh, we should have been dead a long time ago, you know. And
Sure.
but and anybody who says, oh, yeah, we've been hearing, oh, the crash is coming, and not that I'm rooting for it, of course, because I'm going to get just as much of a haircut as anybody else. But this is the first time again that we're seeing gold and silver kind of moving in tandem, which is they're usually going in different directions, and so that's made a lot of people curious. So I mean, I guess the question I was going to ask is, aside from that obvious stuff, what do you think the most significant piece of news in the last week has been that perhaps people aren't really noticing?
Well, I don't know if there's a significant headline that really paves the way for where we're headed in 2026 and beyond. But I think it's a culmination of everything. I just looked at you look at Kitco and you see October had 53 tons of gold ordered by central banks. Central banks continue to hoard gold. That is the metal of choice as far as monetary storage of value. But the main thing that I see, Frank, and you mentioned silver keeping up with gold, we're starting to see the breakaway of the gold silver ratio that I think has been artificially set for decades now. And I think that's coming apart basically because of a nation state buying. You look at countries like Russia, India. Russia put silver as a strategic reserve asset on their balance sheet over a year ago. I covered that story. I said, this is huge. So a lot of the bullion trading houses, the London Exchange, where we've papered over so many years of fiat to silver or gold, that's coming apart, and physical deliveries because you know markets love certainty, Frank, and they're not getting certainty. Trust is disappearing because we're in this cyclical part of history where institutions start to decline. People aren't trusting that. Nation states aren't trusting that anymore. Uh, Look at J.P. Morgan, I believe, just recently is going to move their gold desk to the Shanghai Gold Exchange. They're moving away from London and away from New York. Gold is moving eastward, and Hong Kong, as a matter of fact, is putting in physical gold storage units just outside of the airport. So everything's going, I think we are a digitized world, and you look at things like Bitcoin, and we can talk about that. And there's a lot of things going on with crypto that are really interesting. But in the macro sense of where we're headed, because of the amount of currency that's been created and the devaluation that's taking place in those currencies, everything's moving towards commodities. It's really either rare earth minerals, precious metals, things like copper. These are things that are, nation states are vying for. I mean, you look at even the United States government is taking stakes in companies like Intel, where they've got the lithium mines and everything. This is for strategic reasons, and China's not alone in putting silver I mean, they're really protecting their silver cache because of weapons systems and technology and other things. We're just, I think the main thing that I take away from the headlines, Frank, is that we've had normalcy bias for a long time. We're able to bail ourselves out of different economic downturns, whether it's the dot-com bust of the early 2000s or the great financial crisis of '08 and '09. But those are quaint times given the amount of, like you mentioned, the debt clock and by the way, those are numbers we'll never pay back, and you're not even able to pay back the debt when you have a Federal Reserve central bank system. It's a snake eating its own tail. You have to create more currency to pay the currency back. So it's supposed to be that it's a never ending cycle. So that's stuff that'll never be paid back, but it puts a burden on the everyday person who's out there just time, energy, paying bills, taking care of their family, and you're working harder and harder to make these green pieces of paper that are worth less and less. And that's why I think there's something so big happening right now it's even hard to articulate because I'm watching it from the level as a dealer, and I'm not a big dealer. I'm a nationwide dealer, but we have two shops in two different states, and I'm watching this. I'm watching everyday people sell tons and tons of their silver. They're selling their gold, but to be honest with you, there's not. These aren't like the used to when gold would hit an all-time high, or if silver would bump. We'd have people come in the shop and there'd just be cash. They want to buy. Those people are gone. So they're not buying. But you know who is? Multinational conglomerates and banking consortiums, governments, right? The average people are having to cash out because of the economy is not doing great. And that's why Wolfpack and other things we do for the membership is important because you can dollar cost average. And we still have all those people. Those numbers are real strong. But I've watched the buys dwindle and the people selling me continues to increase, which puts a lot of pressure on how do I source cash? I'm 3 weeks out from getting paid from stuff that I bought 3 weeks ago. Like
Tony, when you talk about that right there, with people selling, that almost seems counterintuitive. But then
I
again,
think it's the top.
What's that?
A lot of people think this is the top of the market because you'd be right if you were in any other part of history, but you're not. And this is uncharted water. So a lot of people think, oh, the gold's hitting an all-time high. We're at 4,200, going to 4,300 or whatever, and I'm going to sell out. And sometimes you have to, and I understand that. And that's what that's part of my business model. So I'm not telling you don't sell to me. I just know that if the people aren't buying and the price continues to rise, it means someone is.
Mhm.
And those are the banksters. The banksters are gobbling it all up. I mean, that's where it's going. It's flowing from people like me going to the wholesaler and then going further up the chain. These are governments. These are institutions. They know something that you don't, and that's why, like a lot of, I watch. I mean, this is my wheelhouse, so I stay tuned into whatever's going on with gold, silver, Bitcoin constantly, and I try to put this message out. Like I'm happy to buy things, and it's not like it's a huge burden on me, but definitely the business model has changed. I don't think we're at the top of the market. I don't even know where that is,
Okay,
to be honest with you.
so just fast forward a year from now. Short answer: where do you think gold and silver is a year from now? Are they holding steady, or are we doubled?
Well, there's a lot of macro issues with that, and I definitely don't. I'm not. You won't find the word investment anywhere on my website. I'm real careful with that because I deal in. I'm in the protection business, not the investment business. But I will say I think that we're not out of any kind of range where silver definitely has the ability to go triple digits. I think within the next 12 to 24 months, given its rise. I mean, look at this week. Last week, I mean, it was 9 days ago, Frank. I was trading silver at $48 an ounce, and it bumped to 59.
Dude, it's
Like
nuts.
that, like over a weekend. And then so I'm coming in, and you see the avalanche of stuff, and people not selling me product. And the same thing with gold. We're in price discovery right now. I don't think these numbers are inflated. The stock market is pretty weak. The economy is weak in general because there's a lot of uncertainty, either with tariffs or macro issues, trade issues. There's a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that normally would drive the prices down for gold and silver. If you remember, there's an interesting thing that happened at the first quarter of 2020, and I'll never forget it. We had the highest record stock market day since 1929, and then I think 48 hours later we had the lowest since 1929. It was like it was this huge spike, and then in a downturn. Gold was like $1,200 an ounce, and silver went to $11 an ounce. People were calling me saying, "Hey, I want to buy some silver," and I'm like, "Well, good. Nobody has any," and nobody wanted to sell at 11. So I thought that's a good indicator that there's something really screwy with the precious metals markets as far as like when the prices go that low. I mean, there's no sellers,
Yeah.
and so I think that we do have a supply issue with both gold and silver, and I think that's the transfer of wealth that's happening right now. I wish I had more metrics on it, but I don't have that data. I just know that it's flowing upwards, and these institutions, the prices wouldn't be where they are right now if there wasn't. I mean, that's just basic economics. So
Well,
it's going somewhere, and I think my estimation is going to institutions.
I remember the last time you were on, I forget what question I asked specifically, but I think it was about the correlation between movement of gold and silver, and then of course digital currencies, and Bitcoin in particular. And you know, Bitcoin had rushed well past 100,000 around that time. We were talking about gold and silver. Top, you know, silver at that point I think was somewhere around $40. I'll tell you one thing: this is the first Christmas in maybe 10 Christmases that I'm not giving anybody any silver ounces a piece. I think everybody might get a couple of Mercury head dimes. But I mean, I mean, I guess
I'm with you.
I'm delighted to say that, because you know, I think everybody that was stacking when it was less than $20 an ounce, it feels a little bit vindicated. But at the same time, you know, here we are in crunch time. But Bitcoin, of course, it lost a lot of market value. But you know, even as me, you know, I don't hold very much at all. But even if I did, I've witnessed the same kind of cyclical busts followed by super massive booms with Bitcoin for years now, that it wouldn't bother me. And I would just kind of like hold the line there. But, you know, we briefly discussed the concept of entropy last night on the show, and how endless expansion is also never possible. So, do you see Bitcoin crashing to either nothing one day, like some people say, or finally settling into a longer lasting, more stable orbit? And if it is the latter, if the latter is more likely, what do you think that orbit could possibly be? Are we talking about $1 million a coin, $250,000 a coin? I don't know. What do you think?
I think Bitcoin's maturing. I think it's really what you're watching. It's becoming a lot more stable. And yeah, there was the drawdown from, we had an all-time high in October, 127,000 or some odd. I don't really pay attention to price much anymore. I realized a while ago that whatever Bitcoin I have, I'll never sell. So I'll ride it to zero. Because I put it on my company masthead, like that's what I do. I will, I put my name on this, and I've been in the Bitcoin space since 2016. So I think at the end of the day, what you're watching with Bitcoin in particular, when in the January of 24, when BlackRock launched their ETF, I did a live stream when I was driving, and I was like, hey, it's like 30 some thousand a Bitcoin. It'd been up to, the year before it it went up to 67,000, whatever it was. I think 21 is when it hit that. So it had just been languishing for a while. And I said, hey, pay attention to this. The institutions are getting in. And of course they did. And it's been more and more adoption through institutions. And when it hit the all-time high, in October, there was a big sell-off from OGs, like old guys that have held like old wallets for a long time. They liquidated, and there was a lot of Bitcoin that hit the market. And at the same time, you just see who's buying. I mean, there's Bitcoin is a fascinating subject matter, and I could be wrong about it. I could get, left flat-footed and I'm wrong, but it has to do with scarcity. It has to do with the network itself and the fact that it is decentralized. It's the only crypto I really buy, and I buy a little bit every day. It's kind of like silver, I picked up. This is what I have for myself today. Somebody walked into the shop and sold me an 1884 Morgan silver dollar, so I brought it home. I'm trying to do a coin a day. I mean, this is like my business. I want to. This I'm going to try to put it away. It's 365 days in a year. Let's see if I can make that. So same thing with Bitcoin. I just put a little bit away every day. The scarcity issue with Bitcoin is what makes it the most fascinating, is that, there's less than 850,000 people in the world that own at least one Bitcoin, and that number is shrinking. So, I mean, again, there's not enough Bitcoin to go around, and I think there's more millionaires on Earth than people that have $1,200 in Bitcoin. So it's just a scarce asset. It could go to zero. That is possible. But I don't think very likely. And I think they're building a bridge between Bitcoin and stable coins. Look, gold is always going to be money. Silver will be money. It's just the way it's part of our story is human beings. And we'll read enough history to know that. It's not going to have a lot of the Bitcoiners think that they're going to demonetize gold. I think that's funny. They're not going to demonetize gold, but I think Bitcoin will do something very interesting in the next 4 to 5 years. I don't know if it's going to be a million, but I think price discovery is still in play, and $100,000 Bitcoin will happen again.
Okay.
Easy.
Well, then last question I have for you tonight in this short little check-in. I love these little news briefs with you. But a couple of weeks ago, video was going around about the last American penny that was pressed. Everybody's they're watching it, looking at, wow, it's the last penny. That's the very last one that was pressed. Tell me about the penny, what you think about that. And then of course the big question is the nickel next? And we have a chat room poll that is live right now. And in the chat room poll, we have quite a few people. What is it? About 300 people voted, and 37% say yes, the nickel's next. No, it says 27%. They think the nickel's sticking around. And of course, 36% say nickel D's nuts. So what do you
that's the best. That's the most educated guess, I think.
Okay.
Well, the penny's gone. The nickel's next. Yeah, of course. It costs 14 cents on average to make a nickel. And I don't know what it costs to make a penny. It was way over a cent. And we haven't made a copper penny since 1982. I was actually thinking about, and it's funny, I had this conversation today with Yeka, my head trader, who works for me and bills the invoices. I'm like, we should buy pennies. And I'm talking about like wheat pennies and the things that they're copper. Like copper is a commodity.
What's the year? I forgot what the cutoff. You're talking about the wheat pennies,
82.
Right? 82. What's the percentage of copper before 82? 100%?
That's a good question. It may be 100%.
Okay.
Because I mean, you put copper hardens and it's able to be coined, and it may be. That's a good question. I don't know if it's 100%. It probably is close to it. Most coins, like gold coins that were minted by the U.S. or silver coins, are 90%, and then you put in some copper and zinc to harden it, because gold is so malleable, and then of course silver tarnishes. So that's why it's a 90% coins on any of those spectrums. So that's a good question. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, that's copper is a commodity. And of course they stopped making, that should tell you a lot. And it's just, there's a war on cash. And that's why I think, gold and silver are the new cash, Frank. Like, if you've got a 1 ounce silver round, or you got a 10th ounce gold eagle or something, that's cash to me. That to me, that's a tradable commodity that you have no third party or counterparty risk against. And I think even just looking through your change, anything prior to 1982 on those pennies, that's real copper, folks. And the silver, anything 64 and back for quarters, half dollars, dimes, and dollars are 90% silver.
Well, that's where we're going right now. And I definitely want to bring you on again sometime soon, just to keep talking about the Federal Reserve and what's going on out there, because next week I'm going to be able to ask some really great line of questions about the legislative, not only the legislative duties for Congress if the income tax were to be done away with, like President Trump has mentioned twice in the last week, which it's like, listen, don't tease me with a good time. Seriously, if you're not going to do something about this, don't please just stop talking about it unless it's going to happen. And I hope it's not one of those things where it probably, because I don't know how feasible it is, as immoral and illegal and inhumane it is, this income tax. But I think about it and I say to myself, well, this could just be the businessman floating the biggest ask ever so that a 10% tax cut would seem like a deal. Like, hey, I wanted to get rid of the whole thing. At least give me I don't know what the hell it is. I want it all gone. But I have questions about that, too, because I'm sure you'd be able to riff on this, too, after I get this show under my belt. And that is, if there was a way and the will to be able to do away with the income tax and shutter the Federal Reserve and start something new, stable, and constitutional for ourselves to give ourselves a chance at a future, the real question is where the greatest form of resistance would come from, because the income tax, it means everything to us. It defines our lives because it's a third of our year working stolen from us. But it is also the backbone of the greatest wealth redistribution scam that has lasted over a century now, which has fueled
Absolutely.
so many wars, so much turmoil around the world. It has been used as collateral for every anti-human plot. I mean, the NGOs, the unspoken bureaus and agencies that are dependent on us being tax cattle. Oh man, you want to talk about resistance? I think this is a much bigger fight than just what would have to be done in Congress. So we got to talk about that at some point soon.
Oh, I'd love to talk about that, and I don't know how much more time you have. That's a great conversation starter because so much to unpack. When you ask who would resist it, I can tell you who would resist it. The very bottom and the very top. Very top loves the income tax. They installed it. The very bottom thinks that
It's theirs.
they're right. They think that that's where their wealth comes from, and that it's just a scam. It's a scam. The middle is the one who pays all the taxes. These multinationals and these corporations and banking conglomerates don't pay it. They offshore it. They have armies of attorneys and accountants, and then people like me and you, if we try to get ahead, they kicked the ladder down a long time ago. It's amazing that we're able to even do anything. In the Communist Manifesto, they call for a central bank and they call for a graduated income tax. I mean, that's not a mistake, and that's the elite built that. They funded Karl Marx to write that. So that's who would resist it. If we turn that off right now, Frank, and I'll leave you with this: if we turned off the income tax, the economy, we'd be like the Jetsons. Like the economy would boom. We'd have foreign investment. It'd be like we'd have a renaissance in this country. And you could still, you could have a consumption tax. You could have, modest tariffs and stuff. I don't know. We don't the brains in the Congress. I don't know if we have the brain. I don't know if they would understand what we just said. Most of the elected representatives. But no, we would have a renaissance if we were able to do away with that. It would be there would be a lot of wealth, more than we could ever dream of. It would be something that, that's why they did that in 1913 and gave us the 16th Amendment, was to put a governor on our economic engine.
Well, I think what you just said right there, I don't think they would understand what we just said. I think the scary thing is that most of them do, and whereas there are a lot of very unintelligent human beings that represent Americans in Congress, I think that most of this is just simply malice, and that's it. It's gangsterism by vote, and trust me, we're gonna have a lot of great things to talk about because I want to have you on again soon. Hey, before we leave, because I have to get off a little bit early because I'm joining another friend on the front end of his show. Please take a moment to just let everybody know how easy it is to ensure that they're stacking a little as their budget may allow through you. Quite frankly, .gold. I consider what you do, Tony, a vital part of household preparedness. It's right up there with non-perishable foods, firearms, communications, whatever the hell it is. I know that you said you created the code Frankly for anybody that's buying Wolfpack or one-off or Christmas gifts, whatever it is. The promo code Frankly is still open. You're still getting junk silver out to everybody before December 18th.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep running that. I think in perpetuity, Frank. We'll always have promo code Frankly, and you can go to quitefrankly.gold. And what makes us different is our shop is white glove. Like you call us, like we're going to go through, especially if you're going to do a direct sale. I've got a live human being you can talk to. You can talk to me anytime you want. And we've got 2 shops in 2 different states. We buy a lot from the public. We buy from some trusted sources, and we have a monthly membership program. It's easy to cancel, by the way. You want to get in on the monthly deal, it's fine. You don't have to go through You don't have to hire a service to get rid of us. Like I've made my business the way I would want to be treated, and I've done this from the very beginning on education and how we walk people through their purchase, and I'm proud of that. So yeah, quite frankly, .gold. You can do a direct purchase there. You can roll over an IRA, or you can just go to the link that says join Wolfpack, and that's just your dollar cost averaging, anywhere from $50 to 5,000 a month. We do it all.
Well, I hope that more and more people in this audience work with you, because this is something that doesn't go away, and it's one of the more forward-thinking things and simple things to do without me pretending to know exactly what the hell I'm talking about. It's one of the more easy concepts financially that I have grasped over the years. Just it's more practical, tangible diversification, and I'm really glad to have you as a friend and a partner. So thank you so much, Tony. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. See you soon.
All right, everybody. There goes Tony Arterburn, Wise Wolf, Quite Frankly .gold, and he's got his own show as well. Okay, it's 8:44. I got to get off in a couple of minutes because I'm going over to Matt Christensen's channel. Now, if you are watching on the flip side, I'm going to put it in the chat room right now. As you know, on nights like tonight, when I show up on Matt Christensen's channel, if you are watching, that really dominates the flip side, where you get some inside baseball. Like before Matt goes live on his channel, you're listening to me talk to Matt beforehand and just kind of like yucking it up. So you come to flip side and just listen to what's going on. I'm putting that in the chat rooms right now on Rumble and D Live and Twitch and YouTube and everywhere else. So check it out. Let's go to your super chats. Kevin Polina, how are you, Kevin? Says Life Challenge Ministries, a full support and recovery and life rescue. Many years of success for any searching. A beautiful program. Thank you for putting that out there. Thank you. Car Guys New England says, Frank, have you seen some of the videos of Kensington Street in Philly? Absolutely horrific to see so many people folded up like zombies. It's the length of the streets. It looks like a Halloween display. It's disturbing, and it's human beings. They're people who were once children with parents. They once had a shot. You know, it's hard to keep that in mind, especially when you're dealing with, like, you know, made for TV zombie attacks sometimes. But damn, that's what's living underneath all that stuff. This is horrible humanitarian crisis. Nathan says, great discussion with Kevin. It's insane how much money we continue to dump into this problem, expecting it to turn a corner at some point. Fraud's the only thing that makes sense. Stowstube says, great Wednesday, Frank and Franklies. Jay Britt says, such a tragedy. It almost seems intentional. That almost seems rhetorical. Shotzi says, sending some midweek, quite frankly, love. And Tugboat McFly on Twitter has seemingly given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 people tier 1 subs over there on the Twitch. There's a lot of gifting that's just been going. Oh, and Jeannie gave some gifts too. Mary Spirit gave a gift out there. Wow. Well, listen, I'm going to put all you guys into the running. And if you're watching this after the fact, you can enter into the running. I'm going to the first ever, quite frankly, ornament, which I will sign and all that other stuff, and we'll send a Christmas card and 2 Florida gold backs. You want to talk about this is gold. This is gold. So you're going to be getting those, and we'll be pulling a name out of the hat tomorrow. You can leave a super chat, quite frankly, superchat.com overnight, and it'll be counted. I'll be collecting all these names, put them into the list, and then you'll have another chance tomorrow night, and we will pull a name by the end of tomorrow night. Speaking of, I am going to be reading for the rest of the evening, and then I will be reading for the second half of tomorrow to finish up this book by Robert Morrow Jr. Tomorrow night, we will be live with Robert Morrow Jr., former CIA operative, which I'm sure is going to make everybody's spidey sense start tingling. I told him you have to understand that once people hear a little bit about your background, they're going to always reserve a little skepticism about what you say. But the one thing that cannot be stressed and cannot be denied is that he spent an amazing amount of time in close contacts with Father Malachi Martin, who I have referenced on this show all the time Just a great amount. The author of the first book we ever used as a subject matter in our book clubs in 2022. That is just going to be a wonderful time tomorrow night. Timothy Gordon will be my co-host on that, and we're going to talk about the time spent that Robert Morrow Jr. has spent with Malachi Martin, what he learned from him, other questions about his life. This is a guy whose work it continues to prove to be prophetic, or just somebody who had inside knowledge about how the early goings in the 20th century of the still very the fledgling deep state versus deep church were beginning to feel for each other in the dark and come together into what we are seeing now, into what people like Carlo Maria Vigano had been writing so eloquently about in his open letters in 2020 and beyond. So that will be a great show tomorrow night, evergreen to a T. And I hope it's the first time of many, or at least a few times, that I get to talk to Robert Morrow, because there's going to be too much to do it all tomorrow. That's for sure. Anyway, ST says, "Hey Frank, I saw you in SGT report when he professed tendon of income tax, not buying what he's selling. What say you? You were fabulous as always." When he professed the tendon or the ending of income tax? Sean professed that? I don't remember it. But either I think that Sean and I spent most of our time talking about Israel, to be honest. I actually don't even remember. It was a couple of weeks ago. But I don't know. It seems too unlikely, the income tax thing. Too good to be true. If it happens, I would be elated. I would be absolutely elated. But it's such a big ask that something inside me says that it's a big ask so that we can more easily settle into something a little bit less bombastic and crazy sounding to people outside. I don't know. And of course, there is a huge gap between what is being generated through tariffs and what we are drunkenly spending every year, raising and spending every year in taxes, which is counted in the trillions, not the hundreds of billions. So I don't know. More on the Candace Owens thing. You know, I'm really interested in stories like that, because when the stakes get so high, I just want to see who's playing chicken with their reputation, and how is this all going to end. You can't just disappear now. It can't just like not materialize. It's either turn your cards over, let's see what you got, or damn, this is shameless. So anyway, a lot more of that coming up. I'll be talking to Matt Christensen in just a little bit. Go to the flip side, my friends. Go to the flip side. I'm putting it in the chat room again. Come to the flip side. Over on Rumble, Jay Semo says, "Excellent show. I pray Kevin's trust and recovery program approach will work, but I'm skeptical. But God bless Kevin and his associates." Thank you, Jay. Tommy Jekyll says, "Perhaps the chat knows. Sure, the net does. Wasn't it during the Clinton administration that mental health was moved from more centralized treatment to communities?" I don't know. I think that I think that the whole mental health institution reform and the closing and I think that actually might have started under Reagan. But who knows? I'll have to go check it out. But the chat always knows, so you can trust them. Anyway, over on Pilled, as I just scurry away here, Vesper says, "Frank, you are the straightest looking guy I've ever seen in a closet." Well, thank you. A Big Chief Patriot says, "Loving the show tonight, Frank. Kevin was a great guest." Safety net, gold pills for gold backs, and an ornament. Oh, you're in it. Don't worry, you're in it. And let's get those gold pills on Pilled up to 10,000. Let's do 10,000 tonight. Let's blast past it. Sentinel says, "What type of tortured soul chooses to be homeless? The concept of a tortured soul is often associated with deep emotional or psychological distress characterized by feelings of isolation, inner turmoil, and a sense of trapped by the past trauma. Those who end up homeless are typically individuals grappling with profound psychological wounds, trauma, or illness. not those who actually choose isolation or philosophical or spiritual reasons. Oh, no. No. Somebody chooses isolation for you're talking about somebody who makes a decision as if they're a monk. No, I don't think that he was talking. It was a philosophical reason people are choosing it. I think it's more of it might just be a crutch. It's almost like the people who are serving long prison sentences and they start becoming so afraid of life outside of prison that they immediately violate parole so they can just go back in because that regimented life, or it was a routine that they just became comfortable with. I have to imagine it's something like that. I don't think it's anything very transcendent. Nathan says, fast forward 10 years, the dime is the new penny. Well, if it's not if it's made of silver. Gambara says, and Gambara sends a ship. Well, thank you. Deansy says, I trust Frank when he doesn't like a person, but I don't trust a person that doesn't like Frank. Well, they exist. Unfortunately. I try to be friends with everybody. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Anywho, join me on the flip side. I got a couple of minutes. Matt Christensen is probably making buttons right now. He's like, where is he? He's a very regimented guy. He says, he actually told me tonight, hey, I'll see you at 8:59 and 59 seconds. I guess that was, I said, LOL. No, I'm going to push it to 8:59:59. No, I have to leave now. Okay, guys, I'll see you in a little bit. And tomorrow, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be a gasser. 7 p.m., wherever you get your Quite Frankly. Shove it right up your...
I'll catch you on the flip side.
That's right. For our live studio audience, thank you, everybody. Remember, quitefranklysuperchat.com. You leave a super chat overnight, and you're in the running for these gold backs. But you know something? Become a sponsor. I don't care what you do. Become a sponsor at quitefrankly.tv/sponsor. You pick a place. And those of you on YouTube, become a member there. I am posting all types of members-only stuff across all platforms. I mirror them everywhere. Patreon to YouTube now. I have some great stuff from Friendsgiving I'm posting tomorrow. You get to see the guys doing stupid stuff. Yeah. A lot more coming your way. Thanks for everything.